Hey everybody, and welcome back to ASH-PHALT, a podcast all about life on the road. I'm your host, Ash Taylor, and today we have a very wonderful, spirited young lady who is not also an incredible singer-songwriter, but also a traveling nurse. So talk about someone who really just represents what the show is all about. You guys, please make welcome Miss Hannah Wright. Hannah, how are you?
Hi, friends. I am good, Ash. I'm so thankful to be here. I love you, and I miss you so much. So thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I love you too, and I miss you terribly. And thank you just for coming to hang out with us today and being here. I know you and I have been friends for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think about where we actually met, and I could be wrong. What is it, the Bluebird?
No, we
No.
met because I saw pictures not too long ago. Oh my gosh, what was the songwriters round that we did? Chasing Melodies, right? And
That's right.
in Midtown at Doghouse, when it was Doghouse.
That's
So
right.
I remember because I saw a picture. It was you and Chris and me, and I don't know if it was Taylor Hughes because I feel like we all kind of met. Or I met you guys about that same time.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. That's so great. Well, for people that are new and just discovering you, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you not only, of course, got into music and all that, but how you also became a nurse.
Absolutely. Well, many, many years ago. So honestly, like both of them were kind of, definitely now I look at it and it's totally a God thing. But I was a little girl in South Georgia. I was obsessed with country music. I used to do little interviews in my mirror, for the day that I became famous or whatever. But I also never just thought it was a reality. I just, we just play pretend as kids and it gets us through things in life. And then fast forward to actually my wedding rehearsal dinner. We had my two cousins. I had a couple cousins. They're musically inclined. I really didn't understand the magnitude of their backgrounds, but I always loved their harmonies. And when they played together, so I asked them to play the wedding. And so they came to the rehearsal dinner. And, we had a few, hanging out and had a couple drinks. And somebody was like, Hannah, why don't you play something? And, I had just enough alcohol to give me a little bit of courage to grab the guitar and play something. And one of my cousins is still a music entertainer manager or just entertainment manager based out of New York. And I guess he saw something and a potential, and he just kind of whispered in my ear, like if you ever wanted to take this somewhere, you can. And I was like, what?
Nice.
So I get married the next day. That was already in the cards. But that message never left me. And I was already a nurse. I went to the University of Georgia and I didn't know what I was doing. I was a psychology major, and then I did one semester, and I was like, oh no, this is not for me. I think the human brain is very interesting, but I was like, I can't sit here for the rest of my life and listen to people's problems and walk out okay. So I went and took a personality test or an aptitude test, and nursing was one of them. And I was just like, well, I'm good with people. I can take this job anywhere. I can travel. I can rise in ranks. I can continue education. My cousin was a nurse. I thought she was awesome. So that's what ended up with nursing. I started as a baby nurse in Thomasville, Georgia. And after about a couple years of marriage and having that little bird in my ear of, it's a possibility. I just, decided one day I was just like, whatever life I'm living, is not mine. I feel like I'm staring down the barrel of a shotgun at the rest of my life. And I just felt, dead at age 26. Mm-hmm. And I hated that I had to walk away from my marriage, but my ex-husband just, didn't support the music dream and saw life differently. And so I took my first travel nursing job at age 26 to Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow. What a great story. I love that. I'm super curious, I know you've done a lot clearly with nursing, but as far as like, that traveling nurse gig, what is a typical day like? Because to my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, do you guys do like a couple days on and then like so many days off? Like what is your schedule like and what's a typical day like being a traveling nurse?
Great question. So most travel nursing contracts are 13 weeks long, so about 3 months. And every hospital is a little different based on kind of the position they need to fill. Some do 5/8 a week, some do 4/10, some do 3/12. And I'm an operating room nurse. So we run differently than a regular kind of nurse in the ICU or on the floor. They usually do 12-hour shifts. But we run kind of a Monday through Friday schedule, 7 to 3. Again, all hospitals are a little different, so it just kind of depends on what you get hired for. But basically, you have maybe 3 to 5 days to figure out the hospital, the charting, the surgeons, the flow of things, so it's a lot like, when you throw the puppy in the water to learn to swim, like the instincts are there, the foundation's there, but you just got to figure it out in the moment, because they didn't hire you to train you. They hired you to work. So.
Oh my gosh. That sounds like a lot though. I mean, that's crazy. I know luckily I've been pretty blessed with great health my whole life for the most part, but my mom has been in and out of the hospital at times and I would get so turned around like in those hallways and stuff. So I can't even imagine trying to navigate that alone, much less the charting and just everything else that you said. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's gotten crazier over the years. Technology's advanced, and people are more likely to sue, and so they're like, we got to cover all our bases. So yeah, you really have to be quick on your feet and able to learn fast. So.
Wow, that's so crazy. So, did you? What other places did you travel at all? To anywhere else? I know you said you had that one. I mean, what are some of the other places you've gone to nurse?
So I was more of the, take a travel job to relocate to make sure I like the city. So my first one was to Atlanta. And then my second, official travel position was to Nashville. And that's where I ended up at Vanderbilt Children's, which was very rare for children's hospitals back then to have an open travel position. And I'd done a little bit of pediatric surgery at my hometown hospital, but not a lot.
Yeah.
But I just kind of felt inside, I was like, the thing that scares you the most is probably going to help you grow the most. And so I took it. And I'm so thankful because I absolutely love working with kids and taking care of them throughout their operation.
Oh, and I mean, clearly I, know you personally for a while and you do have a very sweet soul about you. So I could so see where the kids would just love you and just feel, safe and everything having you around. So I think that is so awesome. Did you ever sing to the little babies? Because I feel like I could so see you doing that.
Yes. When people figure out that you can sing, people like to put you on the spot. And so, I did. If I knew they liked a certain, movie or Baby Shark was, oh God, when you get that,
gosh.
The trending song, you learn the trending song and you go for it. But, the funny thing was I was working in a little hospital in Atlanta and I had this hairdresser that decided I needed to be bleach blonde. And I walk into work and somebody sees me and she knew I sang and she was like, Elsa. And her granddaughter, I think, was turning 6. And she was like, will you please play Elsa at her birthday party? And I think we've all wanted to be a Disney princess. So
sure.
I was like,
yeah.
okay. So I watched the movie a few times, learned a couple songs, and they made me an outfit. And so that was the most exhausting 3 hours of my life.
Oh
But
my gosh.
it was amazing.
Did you basically just sing Let It Go just over and over and over again for those 3 hours?
I literally, the first, like when they all got there, like there was this kind of like split staircase. And so they had a recording and I walked down singing Let It Go. And I think there was one other song that I sang.
Oh my gosh.
And then after that, it was just a free for all. Like I got questioned out the wahoo. And I'm so glad I watched that movie because, you know, it's all about preparation. Like,
Always.
You don't want to let anybody down, kids, adults. Like you want to give them the performance that they want. So yeah, I got a lot of fun questions. They're like, "Where's Sven? How did you get here? Or, you know, why isn't Olaf with you?"
Kids are the best, man. They really are.
They're the best. They're the best. So I was like, "You're just like your mom." No.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that though. I love that. So I love that you, like I said, you're honestly like kind of what embodies this podcast, you know, because it's like you got the whole traveling nurse thing, but you're also a crazy talented singer songwriter. So yes, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, you know, more like your music journey, because I know you've lived in Nashville, but you've also been to Texas, and kind of share with us musically what it is you do and what you're all about.
Absolutely. Well, I would definitely say like my music started as a kid, you know, singing in the church choir. But my dad actually was a musician when he was in high school and played guitar. And so there was always a guitar around the house. And my dad would pick these little fun songs. And when my parents divorced, I was 11 and he left an Epiphone guitar behind or at our house. And, you know, I think I love singing, so I just was like, well, I would like to learn the guitar to have something to sing to, because I would ride on my horse and you'd hear me halfway across, you know, the pasture and the woods singing at the top of my lungs. You know, it was like my comfort, and you know, so basically, I picked up the guitar, learned it well enough to sing, and then I was always a creative writer. And my mom one day, in her Pam kind of way, was like, why don't you just write music? You know, like, why don't you just start writing music? And I'm like, you know, as a rebellion teenager, whatever, mom. And then I was just like, yeah, you know, why not? And so I just kind of started writing music and putting lyrics and chords and melodies to it just for fun. And, you know, it's just for me, and never thought it would be anything. And then when I moved to Atlanta, I actually was found by a couple of guys that kind of wanted to do, like, we're doing this little band thing, and got together with them and sang with them a couple times. And then myself and the guitarist started working together, and he was phenomenal with melodies and chord progressions, and I was phenomenal with lyrics. So we just married together, and did my very first songwriter round, which was at the 38th Songwriters Festival.
Love it.
Insane. Like, I shouldn't have even been allowed up there.
Yeah, that's a pretty big festival. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Russell Carter was friends with my cousin, you know, who kind of gave me the inspiration. So it was one of those friends and family shoe-ins. But it was life-changing. So.
Wow. That's so cool. So I have to ask, you know, because it's so awesome, you know, like we were talking about how you write songs and, you know, you have a band and, you know, you're kind of a rock star. And then, you know, of course, you're a nurse and you're just like, you know, just killing it at that as well. So did any of your coworkers at the hospital, were they ever shocked to find out that you almost live like this totally double life, right? Like nurse by day, rock star by night type deal? Were they ever like took aback by that?
Well, I think in Nashville, they're like, oh, everybody sings, you know, like,
okay.
You know, but there were, I think in Nashville, like I just had such good friends that just supported me, and they just show up to the writers rounds. And I, you know, when you start in writers rounds, like, you're just shaking in your boots. Like, there's so many talented people there. And then, you know, when we used to play at Doghouse, that was when Chris Young, you know, lived nearby, you know, and he'd randomly be there. And So it's like I had so much support in Nashville, but when I moved to Austin, Austin has a big music community, but it's not, it's different. And so I felt way more of people were like, you're the cool, off. And then we go out and play. And then the whole hospital, it felt like the whole operating room, anesthesia providers, like doctors, nurses, techs, instrument people would just come out. And it was just this whole family and community, that just made it extremely special,
Yeah.
It's one thing to play for strangers, it's another thing to play for people that truly care about you and love you and just come out to support you.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Yeah. I remember, you were talking about when we met, and I guess it was at the round, the doghouse round. And then I also remember you and I played the Bluebird Cafe the same night. Yes, we did. And I was thinking about that. And I think it was after that is when I learned that you were actually a nurse. And so I'm like, so wait a second. I'm like, you're in scrubs and you're doing your thing, and then like you change and you come out and I'm like, this girl's so cool. Like this girl's a badass. I'm like, that's awesome. So I love that. I want to know too, like, just out of my own curiosity. So clearly, you've lived a lot of different places, and you're talking about the music scene in Austin, Texas versus Nashville, Tennessee. Can you kind of share what some of the big differences are? Is there one that you maybe prefer over the other? I would love to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, especially having lived in both areas and lived in both scenes. There's so many good things about both, and differences. I felt like Nashville, like it's a big community, and they're really set. I think the writers' rounds really bring artists together, and that's where we mingle and get to know each other and swap information and set up rights and things like that. So it's a really big, strong community. In Austin, like there's a community, but I feel like it's just more spread out. It takes a little while to kind of get your feet set there, to learn who each other is really. And there weren't like writers rounds. I think they were trying to kind of do a few of them here and there when I was in that area, but nothing as prominent as Nashville. But on the flip side, like I feel like Nashville, you kind of get shooed into a certain genre, a certain sound. You kind of get influenced because you want to do what's trending and what's selling and what's popular.
Right.
So you kind of you might sacrifice authenticity at times. Whereas with Austin, like it's just complete authenticity. Like there's so many different sounds and things, and you just do you. And the fans there were amazing. Like people were just awesome. Like they came to listen, and even if they didn't come to listen, they ended up becoming like one of your biggest fans. I mean, I've still got people that saw me one night and they still message me and contact me and stay in touch and follow. So definitely pros on both sides. It's just, I think, kind of what you're looking for, what you want, and what furthers your career the best.
That's really cool. I like how they have like the same, there's similarities, but yet they're so different. And I think that's cool though, and really good good insight on that too, because I've heard like online mixed things or different things, but I'm like, since you've lived in both, I'm like, let's just hear it from someone who's actually been in both places. And you also had a band too, didn't you, when you were in Texas?
I did.
Tell us about your band. That's awesome.
That's probably one of my favorite stories. Full disclosure, I moved to Austin. The pandemic had hit. Everything had kind of shut down. I'd been dating a guy on and off, for a while, who was based in Texas, an oil and gas guy. And it was kind of one of those things where I was like, I've kind of spun my wheels here in Nashville. things aren't happening right now. Might be just a good time to go explore the Austin scene. Give this relationship a try, whatever. And so, just like a gypsy does, she packed her entire life up, in a 26-foot U-Haul trailer. Because I need all that stuff, and moved
Right.
to Texas. Unfortunately, 3 months into living there, the guy and I broke up. But I was like, God, you brought me here for a reason. Like I know you did.
Right.
So I'm just going to let you work. And I was going to pick up a patient one day at Dell Children's Hospital where I was working, and the nurse anesthetist, the anesthesia provider, and the nurse always pick up the patient and take them back together, usually in hospitals. And she and I were just waiting on the doctor to get done talking to the patient before we took him back. And she was like, "So what brought you to Texas?" And I totally skipped the entire backstory. And I was like, "I came here to start a band." I came here to start a band, and she was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I'm a bass player." I was like, "Really?"
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of the starting of the band. I'd already connected with this amazing lead guitarist who he and I were kind of just playing together, like not out, just trying to, get a feel for each other. And he was like, "Yeah, you should definitely start a band." And so he was kind of the first member, but then Carrie, his name was Jack Spear. I'll tell his story, which is really cool, in a minute. But Carrie was kind of the second member, but she really took it and brought in the rest of the members to the band, which was really cool because the pandemic happened. A lot of musicians were out of work, so it was kind of the best time to grab people. Our drummer, Melody, was the next one to come into the band. Her husband had actually had a major heart attack, and she had been caring for him for the last few months, and he was on the mend. So, Carrie just messaged her and was like, "Hey, I don't know if you're interested, but we're starting a band." And this is, she sent her my album that I had, the single. So she came on. And then Jack started kind of getting busy. And he wasn't really able to dedicate full time to practicing and learning, like he's a phenomenal musician, but we were just a little more like family band, like really wanted to have everything super tight, not just kind of like the Nashville thing where you grab somebody and they're so good, they pick it, but we were a little more control freaks. So it kind of ended up where Jack went to do his thing about the same time that Melody let us know that her husband was one of the best freaking guitarists in town. And he had rehabbed and gotten to a point where he was ready to play again. And Charlie Murphy entered the band and just noodled his way into everybody's hearts because he's been around Austin for like 30 years, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Which is insane. And the fun thing about Jack was God took him to where he needed to be, which is now the lead guitarist for Braxton Keith.
Oh, cool.
Which is a guy that's blowing up in Texas and honestly is becoming, blown up in the mainstream. So it was really cool to see that. And then to round it out, we went through a few rhythm guitarists until Carrie's husband, Anthony, finally was like, "Well, I'll fill in." His background was heavy metal. Carrie's background was grunge. And they both switched to be country, Southern rock artists. And after Anthony filled in for a while, we're like, "Sorry, you can't go." So
You're stuck with us.
I had two married couples, which was fun in the sense of everybody showed up when they were supposed to, and everybody was accountable. So that was really cool.
Oh man, that's so awesome. What a cool story.
Wow.
It is though. It's so fun. So if someone's out there and they're thinking about maybe putting together, their own band and kind of hitting the road and kind of doing the things that you have done in the past, what advice would you give them for someone wanting to start out and start a band?
Absolutely. Well, I think the first connection for me was with Jack, and there was a musician's Facebook page in Austin, and I just posted my album and my music on there, and was just like, hey, looking for a band or something, people who are interested in playing this music or something like that, and that's where Jack came from. Obviously, Carrie was a total random thing, but I think just sharing your vision, sharing like your intentions and your passions, and somebody's eventually going to be around you that sees your vision, wants to be a part of it. Even if it's for a short time, like you never know how God's working in the background. But yeah, I definitely think like the musician pages on Facebook, like there's people always streaming and looking, and you never know who's in between bands or just needs to pick up something extra that can help you through that.
Yeah, that's great advice. Great advice. You've mentioned a couple times, your album and kind of putting out some music and singles before in the past. Can you tell us about the music that you have put out? And for folks that would like to go and check it out, where can they find it?
Absolutely. Like any good artist, they're on all streaming platforms. iTunes, Spotify, if Pandora is still a thing. And so it's I put out a single called Like a Gypsy. That was my very first single and probably still my baby, my mantra. And then I put out, I think there's a 10-song album called Revival. And so both of those are out there to find.
Love it. Love it. You guys definitely should go and check it out. You mentioned too about faith quite a bit, just God kind of bringing certain people into your life. And I'd love to talk to you about that and kind of, with what you do, whether it be music, being in a band, nursing, I mean, just all the different things you do, how has faith played a part in your life?
Absolutely. And I love that you and I can talk about this, because you were part of my journey in my faith, meeting you and hearing your relationship with God really gave me a lot of courage to speak out mine. But I was, raised in the church and knew God and had an understanding of the story of the Bible. Went through my parents' divorce, went through a lot of hardships in life, and kind of played the prodigal son role where I kind of stepped away and was trying to depend on my own talents, my own strengths, running after things that I thought would make me happy, like fame. Just if I could do this, if I could get here, like life would be good, like I would be happy. And that's where a little bit of like the running after the music came from, and the gypsy lifestyle and whatnot. Like I was seeking something. I was constantly seeking, to find like where I belong and who I was. And honestly, like there's so many positive things about the road and music, but there are also a lot of painful things, because you realize after you keep running and you keep moving, like you're not finding what you're looking for. Like nothing, it's not a place that's going to fix you. It's not a journey that's going to fix you in the sense of a trip or a vacation. And I finally got to a point in Texas where, I just had lived in darkness for so long. And people didn't see it on the outside because, you get good at masking things, in the South, hide your crazy, like, like you get good at pretending and faking. But I reached a pretty low point in Texas, and went through something pretty traumatic, and it just kind of woke me up to figuring out, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I serving? What is the purpose of all of this? Because we were starting to get traction as a band, and people knew our names and things like that, but I was still just dead inside. And all of a sudden, God just one day was like, pack it up. You're going back to Nashville. And I just never thought, I'd go back to Nashville. Like, I was just like, okay, and told the band, like, hi guys, like, and leaving, which was, they were, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot when you start something, and it gets traction, and then all of a sudden you have to go. It's hard for people to understand, especially if they aren't in a walk with God, and even if they are, it's still hard to understand. So I packed up my things, moved back to Nashville, and still was going through that darkness and trying to climb out of it. And I'm a full discretion kind of person. Like, I'm not ashamed of what's happened in my life or I've done, by the grace of God. He's forgiven me, and I've learned how to forgive myself. But 2023, and I know you know this story a little bit, I got a DUI in Nashville, and it changed everything. It was nothing's overnight, but it changed everything, and I'd asked God, I was like, I can't do this by myself. There were addictions involved. There was trauma from my past. And I was just like, I need you to take this away from me because I can't do it. You just hit that rock bottom. And the DUI was a godsend. And luckily I had joined the church with a great small group of women that surrounded me during that time. And I was open with them, and they just prayed over me, and I spent a year with a breathalyzer in my car. I had to go back and finish 48 hours in jail. So it was a lot of accountability and a lot of things that people fear the most in their lives. But because I had turned to God and I trusted him, and I knew that he was doing what was right for me, that I got through it, and I walked out of it with so much more strength and peace, and direction in, my life in general. But at the same time, I think the hard part was that it also made me step back from music, because I'd been living an outlaw life, and fitting the bill. And that, it seems really cool on the outside, but man, it was a hard life to live. So now I've had to remake myself. I no longer want to be that person. I no longer want to put out that facade and that message. So I know you and I were talking before the show, but like, what am I doing now? And where does this music go? Where does this life go? But I know God is working, and I've learned to just sit and let that happen.
Yes. Thank you so much, by the way, just for being so vulnerable and just sharing your entire story. It's, to me, I think it is a message that really needs to be heard. And I think it is so inspiring. And, I have to say too, when I had the idea to start this podcast, and we've talked about this a little bit in some other episodes, but I wanted to start this podcast because it's almost like, it's really for people like you and I who go out and they're on the move and they're on the go for a living. And it's also for people who want like a sneak peek behind the curtain on like, well, what is that really like? Like the real gritty stuff, like not the fancy, pretty stuff we all see on Instagram, but like what's behind the curtain, right? And so that's kind of why this podcast exists. But one of the main goals that I had was, I wish that this podcast would have existed to where I could go back in time and tell my younger self what not to do when going out and starting to tour. And I love how just open and vulnerable and, honest you are. And yeah, you and I have had so many great conversations about our faith and belief in Jesus Christ and how it's changed our life. And, I've even shared with you too, I've been sober for 3.5 years. I quit drinking as well. And, that was something that when I first started touring, though, and you're talking about living that outlaw lifestyle, it is very encouraged. And, not that there's anything wrong, like, if you have a drink or whatever, but I'm talking like when you're drinking every day and when you're especially using that to numb things and you're using that to not confront trauma from your past and like, that leads to a domino effect that will not make you successful despite what other people around you say. And so I just love that you are so open and honest and vulnerable. So thank you. That is so great.
Amen, sister. Yeah, I mean, you're right, and that's and I love that you're doing this because and that's a good way to look at it, like what not to do.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
if music's in your soul, if it's a part of your being, like don't not do it to avoid all that. Just know that you don't have to do it like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, there are clearly a lot of people in this town and in this industry that I really look up to. And, not in any way that I'm complaining. And I think you might relate to this as well. But when I first started like going out and touring or going out to even writers' rounds here in town or co-writes, drinking was a social expectation. And it's like it's an expectation. Yeah. So if you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I don't drink. If you could handle it in whichever way you wanted to phrase it, it's almost like it was looked down upon though. Like, well, you're a party pooper and therefore now I won't work with you. So I think things have really changed here in Nashville in the past, couple of years when it comes to some of that. Because I think more and more people though have started to say, you know what? This ain't working for me. Just like, you've been open, honest, shared your story. I've, at this point, I really, the way I look at it is like, if you're not going to work with me because I don't drink alcohol, but I work my ass off and I do this, and that, well then bye, like, joke's on you. Like find somebody else, man. But and that's the thing. And even with things like playing shows, I am not the best version of myself in so many ways when I drink. I'm not, I don't put on the best show. I'm not the best wife. I'm not the best friend. I don't really think I honor my God. I don't think I really represent who I am. And so I think though it's important though to share that with people. And if you have drinks and you got that in check and under control, hey, that's all cool. Like there ain't no judgment. I'm not saying you have to be like me, but it's like, Hannah and I have talked about this. It's like, we are the type of people where it's like, that doesn't work for us. Right.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's funny. Yeah. And it's like, I've tried, because it wasn't just like, bam, bam, it just, you automatically flip and for some of us, like there's a process, like, when you're like, well, I think I can do it a little bit or, and luckily, like I'm not a quintessential alcoholic, like more of that addictive personality, but like, it's like, I cannot drink and be fine. I can have a couple, but, it just, you start realizing how much it affects your entire life. It's fun in the moment, but the next few days, and I just, especially running through Nashville and I didn't really drink much prior to moving here, or other things. And you fall into what it is. And I just remember waking up so many mornings, just living in absolute regret, not because I'd necessarily done anything wrong, but it just weighs your spirit down and you've got a hangover. There's this cloud of darkness. You don't remember things, and it's just like, I can't believe it took so long to kind of, get to that point, but I know God works in his own time and you have to get to the end of yourself, before you can really see the big picture, and understand it. But I'm with you. Like I've got so many friends and family members that they can have a few drinks, and they're fine. Like they're like the next day they're up bright and early, and they never get out of control. And essentially I could live that life, but I think I'm just an all or nothing kind of girl.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when you're in Nashville, the thing that I don't think a lot of people get is, like for me for years, which I think this is kind of what kind of led to it. Cause I also did not drink until, I had one drink on my 21st birthday. Yeah. And then I didn't drink again until I moved to Nashville and got really into the scene because like I said, it was like a social expectation and it was kind of presented like, if you don't drink, well, then you're not going to be successful. We're not going to welcome you into these circles. And clearly not everyone was that way. I'm just saying that was maybe the basis. And now looking back, I realized maybe I should have hung out with better, more successful people. But when you're new, you just don't know. And again, so this is why we're talking about this so openly and sharing it on the podcast, because I would hope that someone else who is moving to a new town and they're trying to break into any industry, whether it be music or whatever, it's like, know who you are, know who the core of you are, and then, make those choices. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think just talking openly about this though, and kind of realizing, like, for me, when I moved to Nashville though, I was working so hard every night, going to a
Yeah.
writer's round or a co-write. And so alcohol was just everywhere. And it was just so
Everyone.
encouraged to keep drinking that even if I would have a drink or two a night, well, gosh, that's, how many drinks in a week? And
Yeah.
then you go to a show, right? You play a show on the weekends and everyone's encouraging, guys are buying you shots and this is
Yeah.
this and this is that. And that is the reality of it.
Right.
And so it's like, well, it's like, but you have to take care of your own self and your own body, and we are responsible for that. So
Mm-hmm.
I love your just boldness though, and your honesty, and what you said at the beginning about not having shame, I think is a big thing too. It's like,
Yeah.
be proud of those scars because God literally turned all that around for you, and look at all the incredible things that you're doing with your life, and you're in this like season of, change and growth,
Yeah.
and I mean, that's the thing. You're like, girl, you look beautiful. Like, I mean, you look gorgeous.
Thank
Like,
you.
seriously, I can tell, like, as your friend. And it just makes
Yeah.
me happy, though, to see you being so, like, doing so well and being happy and healthy.
Thank you. That means everything. So I appreciate you, sister.
Oh, I appreciate you too. Well, thank you. So we have this like segment of the show that we like to do that's just fun. So
Yes.
we call it the road rundown. So if you're cool, I want to
Love it.
ask you a couple questions about just life on the road. So for starters, what's one thing you never leave home without when you hit the road?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, there's like the basic necessities, but my
Yeah.
pillow, my
Ooh.
pillow. Like I was like, you're so bougie, Hannah, but like I've had like a bad neck for a while, and you just, no matter your cheap hotels, your expensive hotels, your
Yep.
friend's couch, like
Yeah.
as long as you've got your pillow, like everything's gonna be okay.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I sleep with like one of those like cervical neck pillows every day
Yes,
of my life. I bring my pillow to everywhere I go. That's a good
everywhere.
answer. That's a really good answer. Yeah.
True.
What's your go-to gas station snack?
Ooh, I try to probably beef jerky. Like I try to stay as healthy as possible. So I'm like protein, minimal carbs. So I try. Maybe I would say beef jerky.
I love that. Yeah, I know you and I are kind of on the low carb, high protein
Yes.
type of thing. I know. I love that. Um, that's really cool. Is there, I know you're not playing too many shows, but, thinking back to like when you had your band or when you were, doing a bunch of shows at the time, was there a song that you just loved to play? Like every time it came up in your set, you were just like, oh my gosh, I love this song.
This is my favorite song. That's a good question. I wish you'd asked me that one in advance.
Sorry. We
No,
put people
not
in the
at
hot seat
all.
on this show.
Not at all. I love it. I would definitely say probably a couple of them. But Janis Joplin has always been, like
Yeah.
that Bobby McGee,
Uh-huh.
it's a challenging song. But I just feel like for me personally, my vocals, like I can rip it. I
Yeah.
can re-embody Janice, and so many people just, of all ages relate to that
Yeah.
song. But it's always, the people like in their 50s, 60s are just like, yes,
That's their jam.
it's their jam. And then Midnight Rider, being from South Georgia, the Allman Brothers, and people just, they know that song, they love that song. And it just fits, the musician lifestyle. So I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, those are good ones. I really, really like those. Is there one of your original songs that you really enjoy playing a lot?
I will definitely, obviously, Like a Gypsy. It's my oldest song per se, but it's the one. My favorite story about that was I hadn't moved to Nashville yet. I was still in Atlanta. But a friend of mine, I would kind of come back and forth and write with him or hang out with him and just kind of, see that life before I decided to make the move. And I was literally driving from Atlanta to Nashville, and it just came to me. Basically compares a modern day gypsy to, you know, kind of the quintessential like old school gypsy, like with a wagon and horse and,
Yeah.
you know, and it was kind of the life I was living. But I think what I love the most about that song is like, you don't have to be a musician or even a traveler to feel like, you know, you're living like a gypsy. Like you're just trying to, life is coming at you, you know, you pack your heart in a suitcase and, you know, you just kind of leave the brokenness behind and try to start anew and make a fresh start. So
Oh, yes. I love that song. That's so good.
yeah.
Do you have like a pre-show ritual or like some kind of like a routine that you do before a gig?
Let's see, because in Texas we had to set up our own PA. So
Oh,
Lord,
fun.
yeah, real fun. We had they had great venues, but oftentimes you know we had to set up a PA. So most of it was setting up the PA. But usually, like I would just try to just go and be in my own space.
Hmm.
You know, and just contemplate why I'm doing this, the whole purpose of being here. You know, it's not about you serving yourself. It's about
Hmm.
you serving the people that are out there, you know, no matter if you sing it perfectly, if you do it perfectly, if you mess up the words, like you're there to connect with these
Hmm.
people, whatever they're going through, you know, whatever they're doing in life, you know, just connect and make that connection and give them all the love, and just take that pressure off because you know I think we can be perfectionists as artists and really
Yes.
put a lot of weight on ourselves.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So, what about being a nurse? Before you walk
Yeah.
into work every day, is there something that you do to kind of get your just mind in that right groove as well?
Caffeine. Um,
I love it.
I feel like nowadays, like when I was a younger nurse, you know, I was that just jump in, like don't pre-plan for anything. You just show up and you just go, you know, because you're young and you're firing all cylinders. But
Yeah, yeah.
nowadays, like I check the schedule, I see what's on the schedule, I mentally prepare. You know, I'm like I see all the supplies I'm going to need and, you know, and all of the things I need to set up beforehand. I show up way early to work nowadays where I used to flying by the seat of my pants and, you know, and just do it. But yeah, I think one definitely caffeine is such a true statement.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just that mental preparation of, you know, having that umbrella view of what your day looks like.
Mhm.
It never goes as expected, but to just be as prepared as possible.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that advice. That's really good. Speaking of, health and everything, mental health as well, how do you take care of your mental health and your physical health when you are traveling, being a nurse, being in a band, doing your thing? What are some other things that you really like to do to take care of yourself?
Absolutely. I unapologetically take quiet time.
Love it.
Yeah, I used to feel like I had to be something for everybody and always on
Mm.
point. You know, and I think I learned it a lot from Jesus. You know, he had his moments where he just disappeared into the woods and had his time with God, had his time, you know, and you have to disconnect from society. You have to take that peace and that rest, and be unapologetic about it, you know, because people, it's awesome that people want to see you and they want to be around you, especially when I go back to Texas. You know, there's so many people there that I worked with, that I was friends with, and they want, you want to spend your time with them and they want your time. But when you got 3 shows in 3 days, you know, 3 hours long, and you're setting up and breaking down a PA system, like it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so I've learned like it's okay to not be everything for everybody.
Mm.
You know, most importantly, you have to take care of yourself so that when you walk out, you know, to people and are around people, you can give them the version they deserve, of you, the more godlike version.
Yeah. Oh, that's some solid advice right there. I
Yeah.
really like that. That again, that is something I wish someone would have told me years ago.
Same.
Yeah,
Same. It
no,
took me a while.
yeah. Oh, no, I love that. I love that. Well, Hannah, this has been just honestly such an absolute treat getting to sit and just talk with you all about all the amazing, cool things you do, whether it be nursing or music, and just kind of getting to, just hear your story. And I just love you, friend. And especially, again, thank you for just really sharing your heart and your faith and just being awesome, girl. I just love you, friend.
Thank you. I actually don't want this to end. I'm normally ready to get off the podcast, but you are amazing. I'm so proud of you. I wish we could talk about your story, but maybe one day we'll have to reverse the roles.
Hey, just give me a call. If you want to start your own podcast, I'll come on. No, I really appreciate it. I think I've talked about it, like people have told me for years that I should start a podcast. And I was like, I don't know, like maybe would it, yeah, like, but I never knew what it would be about. And then this idea came around for ASH-PHALT and I'm like, this is perfect. And, yeah. And I know so many people, whether it be like yourself and just so many others and myself, where it's like, man, I could go on and on about road stories and what to do and what not to do. I've really, really enjoyed just getting this podcast out there and launched. And I just appreciate you coming to be a part of it and sharing your story with people, because I just find it so inspiring. So thank you, friend.
Thanks, friend. I love you, sister.
I love you too. Love you too. So one more time, if people did want to give you a follow, say on Instagram, or go check out the music that you put out, all that stuff, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So Instagram is at Hannah Wright Music. And then, of course, on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, it's under Hannah Wright, WRIGHT. So you should be able to find me on there. And I think I look similar to what I did, maybe a little more blonde, if you kind of get taken aback by the cover photo. But yes, ma'am.
I love it. I love it. Well, guys, be sure to go follow Hannah, check her out. And thank you guys again for sitting and listening to this podcast. I have had such an overwhelming response so far to this, and it seems people are really digging it. And that just means the world to folks like me and to Hannah, to all of our guests here at ASH-PHALT. But if you're listening, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, give us a follow. If you enjoy this, share it with your friends and your family. And I just really appreciate you guys coming along for the ride with us. So you guys take care. God bless, and we will see you further down the road. Bye.